Oh. Hey. Oh, it's you. Hey guys. Edit 320 here. I wasn't expecting you to have found me. Well, my past finally caught up to me. I bought too many guns, and I can't afford to pay rent, so I figured my landlord's gonna kick me out in like a month, so just figured I'd camp out here for the time being, because I don't know, it's all gonna be gone anyways. Maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. Maybe I did it a little too early, but I don't know, it's not too bad out here once you get used to it. All the rats and the little acorns. Kind of cute. What are you here for? Oh, you want a Halloween special, don't you? Well, I guess I do owe it to you for not uploading for 2 months. Well, on the account of all this. Tell you what, I'll see if I can break back into my apartment, get a hold of my equipment, and I think I've got just the thing for you. I'll do it in a minute, though. It's actually really comfy out here. Okay, fine. Let's go. Ugh.
All right. I think I'm in the clear. That was easier than I thought it would be. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of the World Wide Web. My name is Edit 320, and I know I owe you all a huge explanation for where I've been, what I've been doing for the last, I think in the intro I said 2 months, but I think it's actually been 3, since the end of the summer. And this is obviously a Halloween video, so what the hell happened? I will explain all of these things at the end of the video because I owe you guys content, and let's just get to the fun part first. If you really care to hear about what I've been up to, and then also what's coming in the near future, please leave a like and subscribe, and stick around to the end of the video. In the meantime, like I said, I feel like I owe you guys a bit of a Halloween special, and I love Halloween. It's my favorite, probably my favorite holiday, and definitely my favorite time of year. I love fall, I love the cold, I love chili and buffalo wings and football, American football, going camping, fire pits, and I love the whole thing. So what to do for a potential tank Halloween special? Well, Spookson came up with a pretty good idea in regards of like zombie tanks, or, you know, tank designs that kind of refuse to die. I kind of wanted to go an alternate route. You see, about this time a year ago, I had kind of rediscovered Wendigoon and basically fell down a huge rabbit hole watching all of his videos. And I got really interested in that sort of area of content, of just a guy who sits down and reads you scary stories. What kind of scary tank stories could there be, though? And then I recalled that the SCP Foundation actually has some tank-related SCPs. Specifically, there were 2 that I kind of already knew of offhandedly. So, again, about a year ago, I dove into the SCP Foundation and tried to find as many tank-related SCPs as I possibly could, and I actually found a lot more than I really thought I would. Ultimately, I didn't end up making a Halloween special out of that at that time, so instead, I'm doing it today. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video of going through all of, as many as I could quickly find, SCP Foundation article entries that are in some way related to a tank. Anyways, I don't think we need to delay this any further. Let's take a look at some of the wacky and actually kind of cool SCPs that have anything to do with tanks. Get spooky, get comfy, because it's about to get scary. So the first tank SCP that we have is, I think, what most people think of. It's probably the most widely known tank SCP, which is SCP-516, colloquially dubbed the Smart Tank or the Intelligent Tank or whatever. It is basically a box standard T-55 that is not so box standard and has some kind of weird properties. So let's take a look at what this thing is. Now, SCP-516 has some special containment procedure, which basically just involves keeping it in a vehicle bay, and routine maintenance should be carried out on a bi-weekly basis. And hey, I support that. That's actually probably a much better maintenance routine than that tank sees, even in the military, especially as a T-55, especially as an old Soviet tank. That thing probably hasn't seen the tracks replaced, or rubbers on the road wheels refreshed, or petrol oil lubricants, none of that stuff for probably years and years and years. So a bi-weekly maintenance schedule is really good. Good job on you, SCP Foundation. SCP-516 is not to be provided with fuel or ammunition except under controlled testing circumstances, which is a really cool little line because it sort of implies the whole, like, this thing being alive. Like, should not be provided with fuel or ammunition, like feeding it, like food, you know? Like, don't give it anything, you know? Just let it lie dormant and don't touch it. Following Incident 516-1A, no personnel with a history of military service should be assigned to SCP-516. And this is an interesting line that will become relevant later. SCP-516 is a standard model T-55 main battle tank. Records indicate it was manufactured in 19 redacted at redacted plant Kharkiv, the Ukrainian SSR. So it's interesting that they give us enough information about the tank to let us know that it was manufactured in Kharkiv, the Kharkiv plant, and indeed plants in the Ukraine region of the Soviet Union, and then now its own independent nation, Ukraine, that has a long history of tank manufacturing in the Soviet Union. In fact, not just tanks even as well, small arms factories, and the region was very, very important. And also the Russian Empire, actually, I should say, even before Soviet Union. And then the manufacturer date is redacted, so this could be anywhere from, although considering this is a standard T-55, we have to assume it is probably within the 1950s. I'm not going to pretend that I really understand modern Soviet tank naming convention, or indeed modern Russian naming tank convention, but I will just say that considering this is supposed to be a box standard T-55, not a T-55A, not a T-55 anything else, tells us it's probably going to be pretty early on in its manufacture time, so, 19 redacted, it's probably safe to assume it's going to be within the 1950s. But let's move on to what actually makes this tank a little bit spooky. The only part of SCP-516 which is known to exhibit anomalous properties is its main armament, presently the 100mm D10 tank gun, and its turret assembly. From here, designated as SCP-516-1. Basically, the turret is haunted, and even though they've tried replacing the turret multiple times, it doesn't seem to change anything. So it's this weird, aura around the T-55 itself, SCP-516. It's not like the turret itself is cursed. The tank is cursed, and then whatever turret it has seems to inherit its anomalous properties. Most specifically, SCP-516 seems to basically be sentient or in some way self-aware. That's why we call it the intelligent tank, right? Basically, anytime someone threatens the tank or tries to attack the tank, it responds. The turret, whether the tank is crewed or not, the turret will slew onto target and attempt to deal with whatever is threatening it, kind of in a self-defense type way, I would imagine. Also interesting that it will not respond to threats outside of its range or traverse, such as aircraft, which is cool. So that means that the tank doesn't do anything like it's not physically capable of doing. This article definitely seems to me like it was written by somebody who at least has a general knowledge of tanks. Maybe they like the T-55 or something like that. Actually, a lot of these articles, I get the inkling from that they are written by people who are just really big tank nerds, and this is their way of expressing themselves and contributing to the SCP universe, and that to me is just really, really cool. It's just one avenue of expression of your love of tanks, and tank enthusiasm and tank passion, which I'm all for. So reading further in the article, we get a bit more of a clue as to SCP-516's nature, in a sense, and a little bit more about how it behaves. Specifically, SCP-516 seems to have a bit of an adversity to engaging unarmed, sentient being targets, basically shooting at people who are not armed or who are not an active threat to the tank. So a crew can get inside the tank and actually operate it like a tank. However, the tank seems to actually go out of its way to prevent itself from functioning if the crew of the tank controls it to do something that, say, it doesn't want to do, such as firing on unarmed civilians. Specifically, 516 seems to exhibit this in the form of jamming. Basically, I would assume you try to fire and then misfire.
Misfire.
Go to manual.
Misfire.
Island tank!
Although attempts to fix the jam through normal maintenance procedures don't seem to work. The cannon just will not fire. And these properties seem to be specific to SCP-516-1. The cannon specifically, as I think is quite interestingly noted in the article, that none of SCP-516's other armaments exhibit these properties and appear to work perfectly normal. So theoretically, the coaxial machine gun can still be used to do war crimes. There is a doctor within the SCP Foundation that is already kind of onto the theory that SCP-516 may be sentient in some way. And indeed, I think that is kind of the message they're trying to send here, that this to me seems like a tank that is a conscientious objector. A tank that maybe is quite scarred by its experience in whatever conflicts it may have served in. And as a result, we don't know how these things happen, but the tank is now somehow sentient and refuses to fire on anyone who doesn't deserve it. And anyone who does deserve it is automatically targeted by the tank. Again, it seems to be kind of like this, kind of like a Wolverine style of like, they made me into a weapon, but I won't be. And I'm going to use my powers to punish those who did this to me type thing. I also I noticed in the sentence here, the ensuing blank government investigation was noted by Foundation operatives, and it was thought worthwhile to take SCP-516 into custody. I would love to see that Evan Royalty short film of like a squad of like 5 or 6 or whatever super tactical night vision boys storming into a facility to subdue a T-55 main battle tank. If anyone out there is into or currently does any sort of SCP short films, I'd like to request a favor. So as I said, that one, SCP-516, is kind of the most popular and most widely known SCP that is in any way tank related, and in fact the SCP is a tank. But there are a couple of other SCPs that are tanks that are a little bit lesser known, but actually for whatever reason they're the ones that I knew about. I've got 2 open right now. I've got SCP-802 and SCP-3390. Both of which are SCPs that deal with old French tanks. And just before I really read these articles, I don't know why, but when I thought of like tank SCPs, the one that really came to my head was, it's an old French tank that drives around in circles in the perimeter of a certain village. And it's kind of similar, I think, to SCP-516, where like if you attack it, it would attack back or whatever. And I think it plays music, but let's find out, because it seems to me like SCP-802 and SCP-3309, I may have them conflated. So let's study up first on SCP-802. So SCP-802 seems to be the one that I'm thinking of. Indeed, SCP-802 appears to be a World War II era Renault Char B1 medium battle tank. Sorry, it really confused me. So the SCP article refers to this as a Renault Char B1. The proper naming, as far as I know, would actually be the Char Renault B1. Char, in this case, being literally the French word for tank. Char, however you want to say it. Renault being obviously the factory involved in making the tank. The B1 bis has a pretty complicated history in that it was kind of... The B1 bis, the French basically made an overall call for a tank and then went to every single tank manufacturer or every single person that could make tanks in France and basically said, like, give me your design. Everyone made a design, and then France officials would take and pick all the little elements from all the different designs and then amalgamate them all together into the best possible tank, and the result was the B1. Renault does end up being the first factory they build the first B1s, and then they are indeed the largest manufacturer of the B1, but a lot of other facilities produced B1s and B1 bises, specifically FCM, FAMH, AMX, and Schneider, which are all should be pretty familiar French tank manufacturers. The Char B1 is also described here as a medium battle tank, when in reality the B1 was it was a heavy tank, I think, for its time. It was a heavy infantry support tank, or a heavy infantry tank. Continuing with SCP-802, however, it's noted that unlike regular tanks, SCP-802 is able to operate on its own. Gee, you don't say, unlike regular tanks. This isn't quite normal. Yeah, I bet. Although, unlike SCP-516, it is unknown whether SCP-802 is sapient. Wise or attempting to appear wise. Yeah, I think that's sentient, I think is the word they were probably trying to go for. But it's clear through long-range infrared scans and constant surveillance that SCP-802 has no physical crew manning it. Ooh, spooky. The top turret is completely missing, the hull weapon is non-operational, and the treads are nearly falling off, and the hull is pitted and worn with age and battle damage. This suggests to me that this tank may or may not have really seen rigorous combat in the Battle of France. The Germans invading through France, attempting to conquer Paris. Actually, I say attempting. I forgot, this isn't World War I. They did conquer Paris in World War II. Shout out. Good job, German Panzer Divisions. This is obviously quite different to SCP-516, which appears to be in tip-top shape. I mean, SCP-516 is even properly contained and has maintenance routines done on it normally, average intervals, whereas SCP-802 seems to be just left out here to rot. And interestingly, infrared scans have also shown trace heat around where the engine should be located, which are inconsistent with the heat signatures of a conventional engine, making SCP-802's primary method of propulsion unknown. I like to assume that this is some kind of like beating heart of the tank. I like to assume that there's like some kind of like organism inside the tank, but I mean heat, X-rays and all these things that they try to detect to show that there's no crew manning the vehicle probably would have detected if there was some kind of biomass or like living creature inside this tank that is possessing it and making it drive around. Attempts to destroy it have been met with failure. Why the hell would you want to destroy this thing? SCP-802 can take repeated hits from anti-tank weapons and remain operational. While the damage caused only seems to be cosmetic at best, it can successfully drive SCP-802 away temporarily. Dude, what the hell is like, why would the SCP Foundation do this? These guys are being mean. These guys are bullying SCP-802, bro. He's just trying to vibe. Why the hell are these guys coming in here and just like, that's a weird thing. Destroy it. I mean, I guess it's the SCP Foundation. I guess if they can't secure or contain or protect, then they destroy. They should add SCPD. Secure, contain, protect, destroy. Why don't they do that? I mean, I know why they wouldn't do it, but still, like, it makes sense. That's basically what the SCP Foundation does. As to what SCP-802 actually does, it appears that SCP-802, in quotes, patrols an area that is roughly 6 square kilometers from in the French countryside, near, data expunged. Within this territory are mostly urban ruins that are the remains of the town, data expunged. Records show that the town was founded in the early 16th century and abandoned in the early 20th century. World War I? However, there's no indication of what caused the town's inhabitants to leave. Yeah, no, this gets weird because early 20th century, that could either mean early as in the first half of the 20th century, which would include both either World War I or World War II, or, I mean, when I think early 20th century, like, I think World War I. I think pretty much like 1925. It's like that first 1/4, 25 years, I would say, is the early 20th century. So it seems to be that this town that the SCP-802 seems to patrol historically significant in the sense of World War I. However, SCP-802 being a Char B-1 tank is notoriously a World War II tank. I personally, through reading just the rest of this, and there seems to just be SCP-802 patrols around, and if people try to bother it, it like gets angry and all that stuff. Actually, it says, upon arrival of the SCP-802's area of influence, intruders will immediately be shadowed and stalked by 802, which is genuinely actually quite scary to have a tank just like peeking at you from the woods, which will constantly attack and harass them in any way possible. I find this interesting because they mentioned earlier that SCP-802 has no turret and its main armament, hull-mounted gun, is inoperable. So I truly have no clue how they are able to be attacked. Driver tracks troops, drive and adjust, splattering them, running them over with the tracks that are rusty and barely hanging on. I was like, attack and harass them. Again, just like SCP-802 is like hiding in the bushes and just like doing a little bit of trolling. I love that idea. But it also is, it's quite spooky. If you take at it at the more serious route, it's also quite scary. Being stalked and attacked and harassed by a B-1. I mean, those things are huge. Those are big tanks. Very, very tall. The last paragraph here says, oddly, the strangest aspect of SCP-802 is that music seems to emanate from its hull. So I was right. The same music can also occasionally be heard echoing throughout the entire containment area at night. Ooh. Analysis from eyewitnesses and from recordings has shown that SCP-802 tends to play music from the late 19th and early 20th century, so this, to me, really solidifies a World War I time period. Very interesting. It's a World War II tank that seems to have this sort of affinity and nostalgia for World War I, but of course, being French, that kind of makes sense. To me, this really echoes as, like, this French patriotism, French tank that, you know, maybe fought valiantly in World War II, but is now in this sort of afterlife haunted state, paying respects to even those who fought before it. Potentially tanks. I mean, there were French tanks in World War I, specifically the Renault FT, the Saint-Chamond, and the Schneider. The sound quality of the music, however, is incredibly poor. The music is constantly skipping and stuttering as if being played on an antique vinyl record in poor condition. Over 19 distinct songs have been classified, while there remain a number more that analysts have been unable to identify. Addendum, due to over 47 casualties since containment, all recon teams are now to consist of D-class personnel with military backgrounds only. That would make for a really cool SCP video game, being a D-class personnel walking through the woods. Bro, it's like Slender Man. It's literally just like Slender Man. You're walking through the woods at night, and like you turn around and the tank appears in front of you. I like that idea a lot. Someone make that. That's awesome. So the next SCP that I had kind of mentioned just before, SCP-3390. This is an SCP that I had gotten confused with SCP-802 because this one is, if I'm not mistaken, dubbed the Musical Tank. Okay, sorry. I'm reading up SCP-3390 just because I thought this was the Musical Tank, but it actually seems like SCP-802 is the Musical Tank. So yeah, I really had these confused. SCP-3390 is quite funny. SCP-3390 is, as the article describes it, a large mechanical construct that is superficially identical to a Char-2C armored fighting vehicle or tank. The tank was supposedly manufactured in 1919 and is constructed by the forges at FCM. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but I'm aware of the FCM company, a big, well-known tank manufacturer in France, especially at this time. Company for the French Armed Forces during the period of the First World War. I'm going to get pedantic here. If it was manufactured in 1919, obviously World War I was over by that point. However, it sort of hinting at the fact that it was under construction in 1918. It was being built during World War I, and then it was finished in 1919. Which makes sense. I'll be honest, I actually really don't know the dot-to-dot history of the Char-2C, so I'm not going to be able to nitpick that as much as I probably could some other vehicles. Otherwise, it seems to be a pretty box standard Char-2C, which, I mean, those in of themselves are really rare. In fact, are there any surviving to this day? I feel like if there were any still around today, I would know about them. So the article states that prior to Incident 3390-1, which is what I was laughing at, and we'll get to it in a minute, the anomalous effects of SCP-3390 were unrecorded, and it remained in an inactive state and was contained within a standard vehicle containment garage at Site 99, I'm surprised that's not redacted, underground motor pool pending classification. So that tells me, why did they seize this in the first place? Because if it wasn't showing any anomalous activity, why wasn't it in a museum somewhere? I mean, it's a Char-2C, like that's... Like, if there was like I just said, like, if there was a Char-2C still existing in the world today, like, the tank nerds would know about it, and we would want it to be in a museum, and you know, although maybe that's what it is. Maybe there aren't any Char-2Cs in the world today, because the only one that's left is being held by the SCP Foundation. Ooh, spooky. But yeah, I really am interested. I can only assume that SCP-3390 was reported as, you know, being an anomaly, but then SCP Foundation shows up, and then the guys are like, yeah, like, I swear it's haunted, please take it, and then the Foundation is like, okay, it's not showing any anomalous activity, but fine, it's been reported, we'll take it. And then only after Incident 3390-1, its anomalous effects became known. And I just want to read this because it's very funny in my opinion. Timeline of events, and this is also cool. This article is written in this like timeline of events, like being described through security camera footage. Timeline of events: at 4:35 a.m., security camera footage observing SCP-3390 at Section D of the underground containment motor pool notes 2 members of security personnel, identified as redacted. The remote microphone picks up the 2 discussing Second World War history. Gentlemen of culture, I see. At 4:41, so 6 minutes into their discussion, the guards return to their patrol route, continuing to discuss history. One of the guards, identified as blank, utters the words, "cheese-eating surrender monkeys." I've heard French, World War II French people referred to as a lot of things, but that has got to be, that's a new one for me. Although supposedly the article refers to it as a common insult directed at the performance of the French forces during World War II. Now, obviously, not to turn this into a grandstand of French forces during World War II, but I think nowadays we're pretty familiar with the fact that that's not true. The French retreat, whole French surrender, I mean, that is just blatantly false. Specifically, I think we can say that the actual efforts of the French army during the Battle of France in 1940, while incompetent is a word that could be used to describe, I think on the battle, ground to ground, like man-to-man fighting, I think they were just as good as any other army of the day. I think where the French army suffered was doctrinally, logistically, and also in leadership, most notoriously. And it was the French politicians that were the ones that wanted to surrender, not specifically the French army. The famous evacuation of Dunkirk would not have been possible without the efforts of the French forces who fought tooth and nail to hold the Germans back while the British Expeditionary Force evacuated. So a very, very important part of history, I think, something that we should drop, this whole notion that that the French didn't do anything in World War II, especially even after they were conquered, Free French forces, and then in 1944, when the Allies come back and retake France, and actually even prior to that, French units that survived the Battle of France would have fled out to the UK, and eventually would come back to fight the Germans in North Africa. There were French units that served in North Africa. Same thing with Polish units. Same thing with anybody who had been displaced by the German activity of the early 1940s. So yeah, cheese-eating surrender monkeys is not a descriptor that I would use to describe the French in World War II. However, upon hearing this insult thrown towards French forces during World War II, the article reads, at which point the engine of SCP-3390 turns over. Both guards are seen turning in confusion as SCP-3390 accelerates towards them. The cause of death to both guards was through crushing injury. So I laughed at this. I thought it was just so funny that it's a haunted tank that gets offended when you make fun of France. And that to me may or may not be the most French thing of all time. And honestly, if you'd like to read the rest of this, all of these articles, by the way, are going to be linked in the description if you'd like to read them yourselves. The rest of this article basically just describes the rest of the rest of the carnage that ensues as to SCP-3390 being so offended at being referred to as a cheese-eating surrender monkey. It crushes a bunch of cars, it kills a bunch more people, it shoots somebody with its gun, I think. Reasons for this are currently under investigation. This is funny. Details of the destroyed vehicles are listed as a BMW X5 black, a Volkswagen Golf white, a Audi A3 yellow, and a Unimog U4000 orange. Now, I'm not familiar with the Unimog. It's a military vehicle. Let me guess. A Unimog is a line of all-wheeled vehicles from Mercedes-Benz. So, for those of you who can't pick up on context clues, all of those are German-manufactured vehicles, which is very, very funny. Again, this is just some old tank that has some big vendetta to pay against World War II and being made fun of. This thing vehemently hates Germans and vehemently hates anyone who makes fun of France, and specifically France's performance during World War II. I find this quite interesting because this is the Char 2C is quite famously a vehicle from the 1920s, and even as this article entails, was manufactured in 1919, started development in 1918. I find it quite interesting that we have a flip here, where the World War I vehicle is upset over World War II stuff, and the World War II B1 tank seems to be concerned more so with French war history of the late 19th and early 20th century, i.e. World War I. So, kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm detecting a lot of French camaraderie going on here. I don't know if maybe the SCP Foundation is really popular in France or something, because it seems to be that this is a bit of a place where the French can come in and be like, oh, fuck you. So this one caught my eye, and I think at this point we're moving into SCPs that I was generally not familiar with. SCP-125-FR. So I'm actually not so familiar with this one. It seems to be, at least on the page, it looks just like a Mark V tank. Okay, alright, here it is. This is funny. SCP-125-FR is to be placed on a raised concrete block so that its tracks do not touch the ground. Anti-tank obstacles must be placed around the hangar to prevent the progression of SCP-125-FR should it break containment. It is strongly discouraged to damage the hull or throw anything on SCP-125/FR. Under no circumstances should you speak German in the presence of SCP-125-FR, otherwise you will be assaulted by it. So, yet another. This time we've got the British version. SCP-125-SR should be maintained regularly once a month, which is not as good as the SCP-516's maintenance routine, but is better than nothing, and I appreciate the fact that they at least try to take care of this little guy. Maintenance team formed in motor mechanics must go unclog external mechanisms of SCP-125-FR and perform routine maintenance outside as they were of application in 1917/1918, which is pretty cool. So they're actually performing period correct maintenance on the tanks, which I like that. It's pretty awesome, right? Well, let's get to the description and what is so odd about it. SCP-125, FR is a British Mark IV tank, male, dated June 1917 with serial number 9601024. That's pretty cool. That's the most detail we've gotten on like the exact tank that this is. And the object does not appear to require fuel or ammunition to operate, so very, very spooky. 125-FR was recovered from the Royal Army Museum of Brussels after firing on German tourists. I love these racist haunted tanks. I love this trend so very much. It is so funny. Museum records indicate that SCP-125-FR was found by Belgian archaeologists 200 kilometers from the site of the Battle of Cambrai, which those of you who may or may not know, Battle of Cambrai is a very, very famous tank battle, widely regarded as one of the first proper, like, actual mass tank engagements, where tanks were actually used in mass numbers properly, as they were imagined in World War I, and as a result, they were actually quite successful, although there was a German counterattack afterwards that was also very, very successful, and pretty much all that work was undone. So SCP-125 displays two anomalous phenomena. First, although unmanned, the object is capable of moving alone at a speed of 6 kilometers per hour and firing all of its weapons. It seems to have a basic form of consciousness. The object does not show hostility unless one tries to damage it or vandalize it, or if one speaks German in its presence. Again, racism. The second anomalous effect occurs when someone enters SCP-125-SR via the access hatch on the roof or via one of the two overhanging turrets. They're called sponsons, actually. They actually are. They're not technically considered turrets. They're considered sponsons, which is an old term that comes from boats and naval terminology. And it's actually quite interesting. A lot of tank terminology comes from naval terminology and ships. Because especially in World War I, the original tanks were land ships. So yeah, sponson, even turret. Turret hadn't really been used on anything except for naval ships. Naval vessels had turrets. Turret, sponson, hull, right? Tanks having a hull. Anyways, when someone enters SCP-125, the person and his equipment disappear completely. And it's kind of scratched out, but it says, it is currently unknown if the subject is disintegrated when entering SCP-125-SR or if it is displaced in space and time. Oh, it's scratched out. Following experiment 125-FRA1, it has been shown that people entering SCP-125-FR are displaced in space and time and find themselves in 1917 at the site of the Battle of Cambrai, which is fascinating. And then addendum 125-FRA1 describes a situation, a scenario, an incident in which a mechanic entered SCP-125. Fascinating. So this one is a very simple one. It seems to just be, at first actually, I really thought it was just a sentient racist tank, much like the other one. However, this one is a bit different in that it has this weird anomalous property of if you get inside of it, you disappear back into 1917, the Battle of Cambrai, which is interesting and cool, I guess. Not really all that scary, but still, I don't know. Props to whoever thought of it, because it's a unique idea, I suppose. And yeah, I'm getting this sort of sense here. The most popular kind of tank-related SCP is indeed sort of a sentient tank, which just so happens to be racist usually. It was a different time. We can sweep that under the rug, right? Well, on that note of all of these tanks being sort of sentient tanks, that's kind of the common theme here, this one is actually straying away from the narrative. SCP-3205. Now this one is from the SCP Foundation. This one is not from the, I don't think this is from the official SCP Wiki. This is kind of like an offshoot SCP Wiki, but again, I'll leave a link to it. You guys can read it. And this one is one that I actually was familiar with, and this is a very interesting SCP because the SCP itself actually has nothing to do with tanks except for one of its iterations, so to speak. SCP-3205 is a 50 by 10 by 7 centimeter steel ingot. The following message is etched on its surface. Having a wonderful time, wish you were here, all my love, C. Which is very creepy, very weird. Like, you know, who is C, who is this, and having a wonderful time. You know, it's like a postcard. There are no other identifying markings. SCP-3205 may be molten and reformed in identical fashion to ordinary steel. One object produced from the steel will become a new iteration of SCP-3205 and display the same message. Only one iteration of SCP-3205 has been observed to be active at any given time. SCP-3205 has probability-altering effects. Iterations of SCP-3205 have a tendency to be formed into objects which travel large distances and are present throughout major historical events. I'm sure you can see where this is going. SCP-3205 is likely to be able to engineer a situation where this occurs if attempts are made to prevent it from doing so, although it is not possible to conclusively determine this at this time. So they talk about probability-altering effects, and SCP-3205 wants to be present for major historical events, and it is likely able to engineer a situation where this occurs if attempts are made to prevent it from doing so. This tells me that SCP-3205 might genuinely be influencing history so that it may take part, which is really interesting and really cool. SCP-3205 is associated with a humanoid entity designated SCP-3205-A. While SCP-3205-A is visible in 10 to 20% of photographic or video recordings of any iteration of SCP-3205. It has the appearance of a Caucasian male of approximately 20 years of age, 172 centimeters in height, with brown hair and eyes, and dressed in period-appropriate clothing. SCP-3205-A has a consistently cheerful and enthusiastic demeanor, even when appearing in dangerous situations. SCP-3205-A is invisible and incorporeal, and does not appear to affect its surroundings. To date, it has not been perceived by any individual in its proximity, so SCP-3205 generates this humanoid figure associated with it that, at the time, people with the current iteration of SCP-3205 don't notice, don't see, doesn't exist, but in photographs, like, suddenly it's there. A list of known SCP-3205 instances follows. The first iteration, unconfirmed, between 1911 and 1937 as the passenger liner RMS Olympic, the sister ship to the RMS Titanic, British White Star Line vessel running through Southampton, New York route, also involved in troop transport during the First World War. Not conclusively identified as an SCP-3205 instance, but considered plausible due to the presence of an individual matching SCP-3205-A's description in historical images of the Olympic, and tracing of scrap steel from the vessel being sold to a factory where SCP-3205-2 was produced. So, old scrap metal from this vessel was sold off to the factory where the next iteration of SCP-3205 was built. And indeed, SCP-3205 Iteration 2, in operation from 1939 to 1967, can you guess? That's right, it is a Panzerkampfwagen 4, Ausführung D, number 313. Assigned to the 2nd Panzer Division of the German Wehrmacht, participating in combat on both the Western and Eastern fronts, captured by the Red Army in 1943 at the Battle of Kursk, and operated by the 12th Guards Tank Corps, ending the war in the Berlin area. Transferred from the USSR to Czechoslovakia post-war, who subsequently sold the vehicle to the Syrian army, captured on the Golan Heights by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War, and broken up for scrap in Haifa. Believe it or not, this is actually a pretty accurate recounting of what a Panzer IV Ausführung D could have essentially potentially experienced. The Panzerkampfwagen Ausführung D, or it would have been the I think the 6th series and the 7th series are both the Ausführung D. I'll leave a correction if I'm wrong. I'll check that. But yeah, assigned to the 2nd Panzer Division, could have participated in the invasion of France. The Panzer IV Ausführung D was brought about just before the invasion of France, so the Panzer IV D would have been around during the French campaign, and of course it would have been still around during the campaign on the Eastern Front against the Soviet Union. Captured by the Red Army in 1943 at the Battle of Kursk. In my opinion, is probably... Okay, By this point, if a Panzer IV Osprey D was still operational by 1943, it would have been retrofitted. There was a huge retrofit program where all of these tanks would have been upgraded to the latest standard. In 1943, that would have been the long KWK 40 75mm gun, Schutzen, and the larger, more robust tow hooks, and other small things. New road wheels, new idler wheel, kind of things like that. This did happen, and this was actually pretty common. So if this Panzer IV D is still around, it has definitely been retrofitted by this point to be captured at Kursk. The only thing that I'm a bit iffy on is the fact that it was continued to be operated by the 12th Guards Tank Corps, ending the war in Berlin. Personally, I am not aware of any German Panzer IV tanks that were operated by the Soviet Union during the push into Berlin. I feel like by that point in the war, T-34 and IS-2 production was, doing really, really well. And all the other tanks the Soviet Union had, but specifically, main medium tanks was doing really, really well. So not that there wouldn't have been a reason to use captured vehicles. There's always a reason. There's always going to be a point where some division or some platoon or some company is short of a tank or two, and they steal them and they use them. Yeah, I'm just not sure about the Soviet Union using Panzer IVs during the push to Berlin. I suppose there's always room for at least one captured Panzer IV to have been around during the operations. To continue on the extremely accurate assessment of this tank's history, transferred from the USSR to Czechoslovakia post-war. Now, as far as I know, actually, Czechoslovakia would end up receiving a lot of German-made Panzer IVs, like they'll buy them or they'll get them kind of hand-me-downs from Germany after World War II. But it is correct to say that Czechoslovakia will end up getting its hands on a lot of Panzer IVs after World War II. In fact, so much so that, as far as I know, they're one of the only countries that, newly standardizes on the Panzer IV. Like, they adopt the Panzer IV after World War II. I forget the designation. It's in my Panzer IV video. You can go find it. And they did, basically they did some retrofits. They added a new engine. They fixed the steering brakes, or they put new, better steering brakes into the tanks. And made minor modifications to make them sort of Czechoslovakian homebrewed variants of Panzer IVs. And indeed, subsequently, they were sold to Syria, and then fought in the Golan Heights, and Israel would have very easily been able to take them during the Six-Day War. So in terms of like the journey of a Panzer IV, this is actually completely accurate. I feel like this is pretty good for what a Panzer IV could have gone through in its entire life. And indeed, the Golan Heights to this day, or Golan Heights, to this day is still the site where a lot of Panzer IV husks can still be found. If you ever bother to go travel to the Golan Heights, you can still find old husks of Panzer IVs, which is really, really cool, in my opinion. And of course, SCP-3205A is visible in archival photos of this Panzer IV, number 313. Interviewing with a surviving crew member of SCP-3205-2 confirmed the presence of the inscription on SCP-3205 inside the turret. That having a wonderful time, wish you were here, all my love, C, was inscribed on the inside of the turret, and he did not have any recognition of SCP-3205A. So basically, he saw that text scribbled on the inside of the turret of the Panzer IV. He did not understand it because he didn't speak English, obviously. Why would English text be in a German tank of World War II? And when shown photographs of his tank, he did not recognize the crew member. Again, the same word, SCP-3205A, he's not there in the moment. Nobody sees him, nobody knows he's there, he's invisible. But then in photographs, he shows up, and then everyone goes, "What? I don't remember that guy being there." It's very interesting. SCP-3205 has taken on a couple other forms after the Panzer IV, but they're not relevant to our discussion. So if you'd like to read more about them, this article will be linked in the description. But yeah, this one is really, really cool because it's not just like a racist haunted tank. It's like possessed steel. Takes on the form of some kind of historical vehicle. It seems to note that travels long distances, which, yeah, Panzer IV, hey, Berlin to Warsaw in one tank, right? But yeah, what I really find fascinating about this is what I mentioned earlier of probability-altering effects, meaning it kind of influences the world around it to make things happen so that it can then form itself into a vehicle of some kind to partake in history, which is just honestly a really cool and interesting concept. And of course, to have it take the form as a tank at one point is just really neat and scratches my itch of being a little tank nerd. So this is actually really cool. I think probably of the SCPs we've read so far, this is probably my favorite tank SCP so far. So continuing the theme of German tanks, we are now abandoning French tanks and we are going into German tanks. Here we have SCP-6340, or SCP-6340. And again, this is one I'm actually not familiar with. All I see is a photo of the Stro email. So let's see what this one is all about. SCP-6340 is the designation for two German 12.8 centimeter, not going to try to pronounce it, VK30.01H self-propelled anti-fortification guns, respectively designated SCP-6340-1 and SCP-6340-2. So it's two Stro emails. SCP-6340-2 generates a constant stream of white noise, only audible less than 10 meters from SCP-6342. The noise generated by 6342 is able to be translated to speech by placing a radio set to the frequency of 115.08 gigahertz in the proximity of SCP-6342. The voice emanating from 6342 is similar to that of a 6-year-old boy. Whoa, this is scary. This is spooky. 6342 is autonomous. Interviews with 6340-2 have demonstrated that it is capable of firing its main armament. Nice. It is capable of seeming typical operation without fuel and without ammunition. So another sentient tank. Let's see if this one's racist. Due to the neutralized status of 6340-1 prior to being acquired by the Foundation, it is unknown if 6340-1 shares the same anomalous properties of 6340-2 or not, although discussions with 6340-2 seem to suggest the former to be true. Hey there, Editing Room Edda here. I got really confused with this SCP about its relation to 6340-1 and 6340-2. I didn't understand what 6340-1 actually was. What I failed to pay attention to was earlier in the article when it stated that 6340-1 had been neutralized. Now, when I heard neutralized, I assumed that just meant subdued and contained. But neutralized, I now suspect, hints at, destroyed or killed or something to the effect. As you'll hear me talk about a little bit later, it seems that 6340-1 and 6340-2 were both haunted and were at the very least either related to each other or were friends or something like that. There was some connection there. So these are two Stro emails that are possessed, presumably by the spirits of both children, or at least voices that sound like children. And when you start thinking about it like that, this one gets really spooky. Mental state over the course of the year, SCP-6342's mental state worsened. After a thorough debate between the project staff, it was decided to inform SCP-6340-2 of the death of 6340-1 in order to allow the anomaly to properly grieve 6340-1 and allow its mental state to recover. So, what is 6340-1? And the special containment procedure, the remains of 6340-1 are to be stored in a vehicle containment bay and treated with anti-corrosion treatments in order to avoid further damage. 6340-1 is to be inspected twice a month for any sign of corrosion. Very interesting. Yeah, that's creepy, dude. The radio static and, translating it into the voice of a 6-year-old boy. Ooh, spooky. Yeah, that one will give you chills. Next up is another one that I am not vehemently familiar with. This is SCP-6188. It is a picture of an M4A1 HVSS 76W Sherman tank, which is right up my alley, as I'm sure you guys know. Description: SCP-6188 is an American M4A3E2 76W Sherman jumbo tank displaying signs of wear and rust. No, it is not an M4A3E2 76 jumbo. It is an M4A1 76 HVSS. Okay, well, they got the picture wrong, I'm assuming, because, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to continue this assuming it's a jumbo, but yeah, the image they used is of an M4A1, so... Okay. 6188 is located in a forest near Loen, Germany. All attempts... Oh god, is this tank going to be racist again? All attempts to move 6188 have been unsuccessful. Accidents ranging from mechanical failures to accidental injuries on personnel occurring every time an attempt was made. When SCP-6188 is entered, the subject vanishes and wakes up within 6188-1. 6188-1 is separated into two parts, a large factory at its center, resembling the Fisher Tank Arsenal. Oh wow! And large, dense forest that surrounds the factory. It is impossible to exit the forest, as any who wander into it found themselves back into the factory. It was recorded that necessary commodities such as food and water generate endlessly within 6188-1. It is unknown how the food and water materialize within 6188-1, within the factory. An unknown entity designated 6188-2 resides within 6188-1, the factory. So there's an entity within this factory, the Fisher Tank Arsenal. 6188-2's appearance is as of yet unknown. Descriptions mention the presence of a light similar to a car's headlights, which hides the body of the entity due to its intensity. The light was recorded to emit 50,000 candelas and is approximately 120 centimeters in diameter. Subjects that encounter 6188-2 mention the presence of a smell similar to a decaying corpse in the area where 6188-2 appears in. That, if you've watched The Conjuring or any other demonic possession movie, demons are at play. The rotten smell is very thought to be associated with demonic possession. Not that I'm an expert on demonic possession or anything. Welcome back to Demon Possession Enthusiast Reacts. When a human being comes into view of 6188-2, it will give chase until the subject is caught or out of reach. If 6188-2 manages to catch its prey, they will both disappear. The body of the subject will reappear 2 days later on the outskirts of the forest or of the factory, displaying signs of heavy mutilation. The body of the subject will reappear 2 days later on the outskirts of the forest or of the factory, displaying signs of heavy mutilation and lacerations all over the body. So how do you get out of 6188? Oh, several months later, assistant researcher emerged out of SCP-6188 with the journal in their possession. Wow, so yeah, you can at some point you just leave. Yeah, it doesn't look anything like, it's too small. Yeah, I thought this for a minute, but yeah, now that I'm looking up pictures again of the Fisher tank plant, yeah, the photo that they use is way too small. Like you'd be able to fit like maybe 1 or 2 tanks side by side in there, let alone more than one assembly line of tanks with all the machinery and equipment and tools and material to build tanks. This is a really cool one. So the tank itself isn't really, like, the tank isn't alive or racist, thank God, but you get in the tank and you are transported into the Fisher arsenal and then hunted down by something emitting similar to a car's headlights. This is haunted factory, this alternate dimension haunted factory. This one's cool. This one feels like a very classic SCP. I feel like a lot of SCPs involve like getting too close or touching the thing or going in the thing, and then you get transported to another dimension, and like a pocket dimension, and we don't understand how it works. We don't know what it is, or whatever. Yeah, it's neat. Just update the photo, and this one gives my seal of approval. This one's pretty cool. All right, for time purposes, I can only cover one more, and this is this one I really like. SCP-3743. Object class, esoteric, and it is described as Tank School, a school for tanks. And immediately, I had an inkling of where this might be going, and indeed, this one is pretty awesome. Description: SCP-3743 is a school located in a small town in southern Japan. Gee, I wonder which one. SCP-3743 resembles a typical Japanese school, which has been modified to contain extra-wide corridors and doors, a barracks, and a shooting range. The sign at the front gates of SCP-3743 reads, Tank School, a school for tanks. Residing within SCP-3743 are 7 tanks of varying makes designated SCP-3743 A through G. Oh my god, wait, I think I actually do know what this... Wait, this is a different reference to a different thing. Okay, hold on. SCP-3743 A through G appear to go through a typical school day, attending classes, having lunch in the cafeteria, and returning to the barracks at night. The objects are able to maneuver without the need of a driver and are fully capable of human speech, despite lack of an oral cavity and vocal cords needed to do so. The objects are not hostile and enjoy conversing with members of staff, and each appear to have their own distinct personalities. Okay, before we go into this, I thought this was a Girls in Panzer reference. I really did. Because, I mean, look, small town, southern Japan, right, obviously. Resembles a Japanese high school. I thought this was a Girls in Panzer thing, but like, oh, it's a twist. Like, the school is actually 4 tanks. But I think within the school specifically resides 7 tanks. And reading, they have them all documented, which ones there are. I think this might actually be a reference to Panzer Maidens, which is a anime schoolgirl dating visual novel game. Please don't ask me how I know that this is a thing. And please don't ask me how I recognize the characters. But I think that's what this is. I think that's what this is actually supposed to be, because in that game, all the characters are like normal Japanese, like anime girls or whatever. Like, but their names are M4 Sherman, Panzer IV, Char B1, T-34, IS-2. I think the Chi-Nu and the Tog-2 are also in there. and they look like normal human beings, but like their names are Sherman, Panzer IV, whatever in the game, and then obviously they make constant references to World War II and tanks and da-da-da. But the twist here for this SCP seems to be that it is an actual tank school. It is actual school, like the characters are tanks, not anime girls with the names of tanks, but like actual tanks. Indeed, we have a description of each SCP, and SCP-3743-A is an M4 Sherman, speaks with a thick American accent, and is often observed being late to lessons or not going at all. Has shown to start food fights in the cafeteria. Honestly, I'd expect nothing less. That's a massive American W. Panzer IV speaks with a German accent, often attempts to converse with the guards, and is the first to volunteer to be interviewed. Interesting. The Char B1 speaks with a French accent, has attempted to flirt with male site staff on numerous occasions. Site staff have been afforded to resist all advances. Oh, this is so good. This is a great one. Yeah, this is definitely a reference to Panzer Maidens, I am now realizing. I thought it was a reference to Girls in Panzer, but maybe Panzer Maidens in of itself is a reference to Girls in Panzer, right? T-34 speaks with a thick Russian accent, is reportedly the sister of SCP-3743-G, which is the IS-2, is generally dismissive towards staff and actively resists being interviewed. Damn, bro, we gotta, the TOG-2 speaks with a posh British accent, acts as the school teacher, and is the most informed about how SCP-3743 originated. Oh, cool, there's an origin story. The Chi-Nu speaks with a Japanese accent, is the most talented student according to SCP, according to the TOG-2, and is often seen alone practicing at the shooting range. On that grind. And the IS-2 also speaks with a Russian accent and is the sister of the T-34, does not attend classes and is avoided and feared by the other specimens, is to be kept under strict observation since incident 3743G. There was an incident. Ooh, can we read the incident? Interviewer, researcher Barker. Begin log. Barker. Hello, SCP-3743G. SCP-3743G begins to giggle to itself quietly. Oh my god. Oh, hello, you want to talk to me? The other girls at school never want to talk to me. They all think I'm crazy. Do you think I'm crazy? You should. Begins to giggle louder at this time. Bro, this is... Oh. Okay. Why is that? Can I tell you a little secret? Go on. I want to kill you. Tee! I just want to kill you. Tee, tee, tee. I want to slowly cut you open and hear you squeal like the cowardly little piggy that you are. Tee, tee. Tee. Oh, this is so great. Is it fun for you? Is it fun when you drive us around in your little games and make us kill each other? Oh, War Thunder reference. Was it fun when you blew up my friends in front of me? Did you laugh about it? I hope you laughed so hard it hurt. Engine begins to rev loudly and attempts to break its restraints. Interview is over. Guards, get him out of here. I don't think you're going that easily. A grenade is dropped out of a side compartment. The grenade explodes, killing researcher Barker and the two guards. Oh my goodness. Due to lack of ammunition, is quickly recaptured. Staff are advised to avoid unnecessary contact. Whoa, the IS-2, bro. Dude, next time you play War Thunder, every time you play with an IS-2, that's a sentient anime girl that you're piloting, bro, and it doesn't want to be there. It doesn't want to fight. It just wants to go to school and giggle and laugh and smile and be dope, dude. Shut the hell up. A message to all War Thunder players. Stop playing War Thunder right now. You're making the tanks upset. Yeah, this is this one is obviously... Man, somebody must have really liked Panzer Maidens or Girls in Panzer to go through the effort of writing this. I mean, but like, props, dude. Props. I mean, you had the balls to do it, and I admire that. Just note, I have not played Panzer Maidens. I just know of it. I've seen it, and one of my viewers did gift it to me on Steam. Oh my. Can I show this on stream? I think I can. I have just been gifted. Thanks, Wisteria. Appreciate it, pal. So if you'd like to see a playthrough of Panzer Maidens on my livestream channel, let me know in the comments below. Leave a like and let me know in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed to my live stream channel, by the way, please do so. I live stream there multiple times a week if you are interested in seeing more of kind of what I do. Well, on that bombshell, that is indeed the last SCP, tank-related SCP that I had, at least any that I could find. I actually, when I looked this up a year ago, when I initially got interested in the topic, I thought I had managed to find an SCP that was like a little toy M18 Hellcat, and it would like shoot people that annoyed it and stuff like that, and would drive around and like be all like goofy. If that SCP rings any bells, if anyone remembers it, please shout it out in the comments below, and maybe I'll try to like leave a description of that SCP in the comments and try to link it in the description, because today when trying to find the actual articles, I couldn't find them. It was very odd. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed this little spooky Halloween special of taking a look at several of the tank-related SCPs that exist. Again, there's quite a few of them out there, and there were actually probably some that I didn't get to. Hope you guys found this interesting and informative, or at the very least, fun. And at this point, I'll again direct you to like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon if you haven't already. It's really the best way to keep me supported and keep this channel going. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, happy Halloween. Now, if you are interested in sticking around as to hearing where I've been, what I've been up to, and what the future holds. Honestly, there's not too much to talk about, but I just want to give updates. I realize that I've been very good about giving updates on my Discord, so if you're in my Discord, you don't need to hear this, so you can leave. But I've been very good about giving updates on what's been going on my Discord. But I also kind of figured out that a lot of you are just YouTube frogs. A lot of you aren't on the Discord. A lot of you don't watch the live streams, which I also talk about this. I've been talking about a lot of what I've been up to on the live streams as well. So again, if you're just anything but just a normal YouTube frog, you know. But a lot of you don't. So I thought I'd make a video just going over it. So where am I? Where have I been? Well, basically, I have been really, really busy working on a couple of large-scale projects. The first of which is my M3 Lee documentary video. Basically, I am currently working on my next big tank documentary on the M3, and it is going to be what I envision to be a complete one-stop shop where it's going to cover the history of the M3 from start to finish, from inception to, you know, where they are now, the ones that are what militaries they served with, and post-World War II service and everything. All the different variants that are made, just everything, like literally combat history, what was good about it, design features, what changed, what factories produced it, how many were built, when they were built, when production was started, the design of like even like the M2, like going into the M2, into the M3, all that stuff, like is going to be all covered in this. The original cut of it is going to be like 4 hours long, and the patrons will get like the 4-hour extended cut, whereas the there's something like 4 hours, close to that. Whereas you guys are going to get 2 parts, I think is what I'm going to put it up as. And they're both going to be, you know, like an hour long, an hour and a half each. So it's shaping up to be, it's my largest project ever. I've just about finished filming for it, so I'll be editing it this month. And right about the time of American Thanksgiving, the end of November, you guys will finally get that video out. Or I will get that video out to you guys. You guys will finally get to see it, and the upload drought will be officially over. Although I guess technically with this video, the upload drought is officially over. Also, I have been assisting in the development of a tank game. The developers of a new up-and-coming tank simulator game called Aces and Armor reached out to me asking if I would be willing to be a historical advisor for the project, and I wholeheartedly agreed, because why not? Sounds fun. And yeah, ever since the end of the summer, so just about my last upload, I have been working very hard with the Aces and Armor team on making their tanks. I've been working very, very closely with the 3D modelers to make sure that the 3D models for their tanks are accurate. I've been providing historical write-ups on the tanks, on what variant we should model and what features it has and whether it's realistic for what they want, and they come to me and what upgrades should it have and what features does it need, and their plans for the game are really, really, really exciting, and I'm really interested in talking about it more in the future. If you'd like, I'll leave a description to Aces and Armor in the comments and also in the description, so you can go check out their YouTube page and look at their dev blogs where I'm shouted out twice. Thank you very much, Aces and Armor. And you can see what game they have planned. But I'm involved. I'm not a developer per se. I'm not being paid by the dev team. But again, I'm the resident tank nerd that's hoping to keep all their tank stuff accurate. And it's been so much fun. But of course, it's taken up a lot of my time. So I've had to do a lot of that, like do research for them, and you know, some of these tanks that I didn't really know all that well, I've like had to know very, very well because they want like fully modeled interiors. It's a whole thing. So, that being said, that's going to happen as well. And again, I'll talk about that game when I'm able to more and more. And also, in case you haven't noticed, and as I alluded to in the intro, I have been buying more and more guns. And as of recording this, I am just about to head out to West Virginia for a weekend and record a bunch of footage of me and my buddies shooting all of these guns, Garand Thumb style, running these guns hard, and getting some really, really awesome footage, and then doing a Ian McCullum style, Othniel Sea and Arsenal style, sit down with the gun and talk about its history, my specific gun, and how I acquired it, and its specific provenance, and just, you know, doing a bit of gun education, because I've been really, really getting into gun history lately. Like, I love tanks, always love tanks. Tanks are still my bread and butter, but I've really become a bit of a firearms enthusiast, a firearms nerd as well. As you can clearly tell, my collection has expanded. I think I've almost doubled my collection since my last upload, which is awesome. It's a problem. I generally have an addiction. So there will be videos on that also coming. And all the other plans. I have plans for a lot of other content, and I will try to keep you guys updated on YouTube community posts going forward, because I apologize for not doing that. So I think that's about it for me. I'm going to go ahead and end this video. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Halloween, and I will see you in the next video sooner rather than later. Bye-bye. The Markiplier. Bye-bye. Wouldn't that be funny? Anyway, thanks, guys.